For generations, Star Wars has been more than just a science fiction saga. It's been a cultural monolith, an eternal struggle of light versus dark, and a galactic mythology that has inspired millions across decades. Yet in recent years, that mythology has started to falter under the weight of corporate expectations, inconsistent storytelling, and fan division that seems to grow louder with every new installment. From the controversial sequel trilogy to the uneven reception of live-action series like The Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi, the once flawless force that bound fans together now often divides them. But in 2025, a new hope emerges, not from the Skywalker saga or the ashes of the Empire, but from the unexplored shadows of the High Republic. That hope has a name, the Acolyte. Announced with a mysterious title and the promise of something darker, the Acolyte has been shrouded in secrecy since day one. Unlike most recent Star Wars content, it doesn't revolve around legacy characters, nostalgia, or war-torn desserts. Instead, it promises something more elusive and more daring, a political thriller, a mystery unfolding in the twilight of the High Republic, set 100 years before the Phantom Menace. The question that looms over everything isn't just what the show will reveal about the origins of the Sith or the vulnerabilities of the Jedi. The real question, the one that haunts Lucasfilm and the fandom alike, is far bigger. Will the Acolyte save Star Wars? This is not a small question. It's one packed with history, expectation, and the kind of mythic weight that only Star Wars can carry. To answer it, we have to look at everything: what the Acolyte aims to be, how it fits into the fractured legacy of recent Star Wars projects, and whether this bold dive into uncharted territory is what the franchise needs to not just survive, but thrive again. At the center of the Acolyte is a creative vision that feels unlike anything we've seen in the galaxy far, far away. Helmed by Leslie Headland, co-creator of Russian Doll, the show promises a shift in genre and tone. Gone are the epic space battles, the Skywalker bloodline, and the archetypal journey of the Chosen One. In their place comes a slow-burn conspiracy thriller, infused with elements of mystery, philosophy, and yes, darkness. Headland, a lifelong fan of the franchise, has made it clear this isn't about subverting expectations for the sake of headlines. It's about understanding the fabric of Star Wars from the inside out, and then asking the question nobody ever really asks. What does it mean when the light becomes complacent? Set in the waning days of the High Republic era, a time of peace, prosperity, and Jedi dominance, the show peels back the gilded surface of a galaxy that believes it has eradicated all threats. But beneath that peace simmers an unease, a gathering storm of secrecy and seduction. The Acolyte introduces us to a world where the Jedi are not rebels or warriors. They are enforcers of order, increasingly rigid and dogmatic in their pursuit of justice. And into this seemingly perfect society creeps the shadow of something long forgotten: the Sith. This narrative direction is not only fascinating but essential. For too long, Star Wars has been trapped in a cycle of retelling and referencing. Each new series feels like it must pay homage to the past instead of forging a path forward. But the Acolyte offers a unique opportunity to do what Andor began: explore the gray areas. It isn't about good versus evil in the traditional sense. It's about power, corruption, and the fragility of even the most revered institutions. If done right, the Acolyte could be the most mature and thematically rich Star Wars story since The Empire Strikes Back. Casting plays a huge role in whether that vision lands. Leading the charge is Amandla Stenberg, a bold choice who brings both gravitas and youthful unpredictability to the table. While the specifics of their character remain cloaked in mystery, the title alone suggests a Force-sensitive individual drawn to the dark side, an apprentice in a time when such things were thought to be extinct. Alongside them are veteran actors like Lee Young-jae of Squid Game fame and Daphne Keane from his Dark Materials. This isn't a cast chosen for brand familiarity or marquee value. It's a cast built for story and tone, a sign that Lucasfilm is finally learning from past mistakes. But for the Acolyte to truly save Star Wars, it has to do more than just introduce fresh characters and settings. It has to rebuild trust with the audience. The truth is, many fans feel burned. The sequel trilogy left the saga without a clear identity. The spin-offs have been inconsistent, and while The Mandalorian brought joy and wonder back to the universe, even that show has begun to struggle under the weight of fan service and tangled plotlines. The Acolyte must rise above all of that. It has to prove that Star Wars can tell stories that are bold, complex, and emotionally resonant, even when they exist far away from the names and places we know. There is reason to believe it can. One of the most compelling aspects of the show is its temporal setting. By placing the story a century before Episode I, the writers are freed from the burden of canon-heavy constraints. They aren't required to set up familiar story beats or shoehorning characters to satisfy timelines. Instead, they can focus on building a new mythology, one that organically leads to the rise of the Sith and the eventual fall of the Republic. That distance is liberating. It allows the creators to tell a story where the stakes are character-driven and the outcomes genuinely uncertain. Moreover, the High Republic era, though relatively new in the canon, is one of the most ambitious expansions of Star Wars lore in decades. The novels and comics have already laid the groundwork, showing us a galaxy that feels both ancient and advanced, spiritual and political. The Jedi of this time are not yet corrupted, but they are increasingly arrogant. They patrol the galaxy like philosopher kings, and their belief in their moral superiority makes them blind to their own flaws. This is the perfect backdrop for a story about an acolyte, someone who sees through the cracks, someone seduced not just by power, but by truth. If the acolyte leans into that moral ambiguity, it could redefine what a Star Wars protagonist even looks like. The franchise has long relied on binary moral codes, Jedi good, Sith bad. But real storytelling happens in the tension between those extremes. If the show can humanize the dark side, not by justifying evil, but by revealing the cracks in the system that push people toward it, then we might finally see a narrative that doesn't just echo George Lucas's themes, it evolves them. Of course, no amount of ambition matters if the execution falters. One of the biggest challenges facing the Acolyte is balancing its fresh tone with the visual and thematic language of Star Wars. Fans don't want a show that feels completely alien. They want lightsabers, force powers, strange planets, and a score that stirs the soul. They want something new, yes, but they also want to feel like they're in the same galaxy they fell in love with. Striking that balance will be critical. The aesthetics must be familiar but evolved. The Force must be mysterious but grounded. And the action must thrill, but not distract from the deeper questions being asked. There is also the reality of audience fatigue. In the era of streaming, Star Wars has become a constant presence. The ubiquity has its benefits, but it also dilutes the magic. When everything is Star Wars, nothing feels special. The Acolyte has the challenge and the opportunity of slowing things down, of creating a series that rewards patience, introspection, and long-form storytelling. Think less Marvel spectacle, more Blade Runner mystery. If it can pace itself, if it can trust the intelligence of its audience, it could offer a cinematic experience unlike anything else on Disney. Another vital element is the show's treatment of the Force. One of the most mystifying and sacred aspects of Star Wars lore, the Force has often been reduced in recent years to a toolkit of powers. The Acolyte promises to restore the Force to its rightful place as a spiritual, philosophical, and metaphysical entity. If the show dives deep into how different characters interpret the Force, how some see it as liberation, others as control, and still others as illusion, it could resurrect the spiritual weight that has been missing since the days of Yoda's teachings in The Empire Strikes Back. Then there's the larger cultural moment. In 2025, audiences are craving stories with complexity. They want heroes who doubt themselves, villains with depth, and worlds that reflect the moral uncertainty of our own. The Acolyte arrives at a time when viewers are more ready than ever for a Star Wars story that challenges assumptions, rather than reaffirms them. If the show succeeds, it won't be because it saved the franchise with nostalgia or spectacle. It will be because it reminded us that Star Wars was never just about wars in the stars. It was about people, choices, consequences, and the eternal dance between darkness and light. Ultimately, the question of whether the Acolyte can save Star Wars might be the wrong question. Perhaps what the franchise needs isn't saving, but reinventing. Not from the outside in, but from the inside out. Not through fan polls or familiar faces, but through courageous storytelling that dares to venture into the unknown. The Acolyte could be that story. It could be the spark that reignites the Force in the hearts of fans who've lost faith, and the blueprint for a new era of Star Wars, one that isn't afraid of the dark, but willing to walk through it. So will the Acolyte save Star Wars? Maybe. But more importantly, it might just make us fall in love with it all over again, for reasons we never expected.